Today we're going to be roasting a coffee from Bolivia. It is a San Lorenzo that was grown at 1,525 meters above sea level. This is a coffee that I've had for quite a while. It's a little bit older. We're going to be using a new roaster. This is the second time that it's been on my channel. It is the BeanGoCube X. This roaster is designed specifically for a beginner, but today we're going to be roasting manually on it, and we're going to be pulling off a custom profile. And I'm going to be using this roaster in a couple of more videos to show you its capabilities. Last time when we did a roast, I used the auto roast feature. Since then, I have roasted well over 30 roasts on this roaster, and I found that the larger the roast, the larger the batch, like 300 grams, the better it follows the profile. And I think that is pretty much standard for other roasters that are in the auto mode or have an auto mode capability. So today we're going to be roasting 300 grams of this Bolivian coffee, and the profile is going to look something like this. We're going to roast this coffee for about 4.5 minutes until the coffee turns yellow. I want it to get the first crack in about 8 minutes, and then I'm going to drop the coffee about 1 minute to 1 minute and 20 seconds after first crack starts. For you beginners at roasting coffee at home, this is the type of thing that eventually, if you take your hobby further into the craft of manual roasting and custom roast profiles, these are the things that you think about. We have a coffee that has a wonderful capability of producing some fruity notes and some really good sweetness. In order for me to do that, I want to have a roast time that's long enough to be able to develop flavors and give me some sweetness. For the fruity side of things, I can't go real dark with this coffee, or all I'm going to get are the roasty notes. So I'm intentionally roasting this coffee on the lighter side of the roasting spectrum, a medium light roast. I'm looking for a drop temperature of around 198 C for this coffee, maybe 199 for this total roast time of about 9.5 minutes. I'm going to open up the BeanCube app, turn on the power switch, and now the roaster is connected. Yeah, I have 34 roasts under my belt. This roaster is at room temperature, and we're going to have to get this up to a charge temperature, which I haven't decided yet. I need to figure this out. This is a fairly dense bean. It's not a high density bean. 770 on the density score. In order for me to go to 4 minute and 30 second dry, 300 grams of coffee, I'm going to have a charge temperature of about 185 C. So we're going to set the roaster for 185 C, going to a new roast, and this is going to be a Bolivia coffee, San Lorenzo, 300 grams, bean temp on charge I said was 185. And when we start with our heat, we're going to be starting at 85% for our power, 50% fan, and 50% for our 50 RPM for our drum. And I'm not going to set any of these points because I'm not exactly sure how this roast is going to turn out. So we're going to wing the whole thing manually. And this is going to be a medium light roast. It's a washed Bolivia, and we're going to start. And the roaster is now beginning its warm-up process. This is going to take about 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll get started. The roaster has reached its preheat level, and I'm going to let it run for a few minutes longer just to make sure that it's stable and up to speed. And my goal is to have both the green and the yellow lines be parallel with each other, knowing that I have a stable roasting environment. Okay, so while we're waiting for that, why don't we talk about this for a second? So this is a drum roaster. The BeanGoCube X its design is a consumer model that is push button. So I roasted an automatic profile for this roaster and looked at it, different types of coffees that have profiles here in the app, pushed a button, and it ran that profile. You can take a look at that last video. It did a pretty good job doing that with just 100 grams of coffee. We're going to be roasting 300 grams of coffee this time, and we're going to be doing it in the manual mode. This is the type of roaster you can grow into, where if you really don't know what you're doing in the beginning, it'll roast you some decent coffee. And then when you're ready to build your skills, then this roaster is going to allow you to follow profiles as well as create your own profiles. So we're going to roast this coffee manually. What does that mean? That means that I'm controlling the roaster in every aspect. I'm controlling the heat, I'm controlling the amount of air that is blown into the roaster, and I'm controlling the drum speed of the roaster. And I'm guiding this roasting process to achieve certain event times. We are ready to roast. The environment is stable, preheat is on. 300 grams is in the roaster, and we are going to start the roast. All right, the beans are in the drum, turning around right now. You can see the light is on. This is the heating element, and the heat is being applied to the beans just from the environmental temperature of 185 C, but also because we now have the heating element turning on to try to build up more heat in the roasting environment, because both the environmental temperature, the orange or brown line here, as well as the bean temperature are dropping. It's expected because we've just put something room temperature inside of a hot drum, so that's going to affect the temperatures a little bit. But this is going to turn around. We're going to see the temperature, bean temperature, turn around at about the 1 minute mark, which is in about 10 or 12 seconds. So let's see what happens with that. That's my estimate at least. And then we're going to start to see temperatures increasing with this roaster. Okay, we are at 1 minute and 4 seconds. You can see the green line, that's the bean temperature, is turning, and a turning point has been marked at 1 minute and 3 seconds, 73 C. We're going to continue on. This is a good number because I'm familiar with this number with other roasts that I've done with other coffees. I've got some pretty good momentum here. I don't really want to push this coffee hard, meaning I don't want to apply too much heat. So the 430 number might not be realistic. It might be a little bit longer than that. We'll find out. So what's happening to this coffee during this first drying phase? Well, I mentioned that heat is being applied to the beans and moisture is being driven out of the bean. As we roast along through the drying phase, it's really doing a couple of things. It's evaporating the moisture, it's allowing heat to penetrate, and if I don't do it too fast and too hard, then my goal is to help promote a nice even roast. And I think that is one of the main reasons why I picked this amount of time and the amount of power I'm applying, because I don't want to roast the coffee too quickly. I want the bean to be roasted evenly through. It's also setting me up for success. The dry phase is a way to set me up so that the rest of my roast is in control. And I really want my roast to stay in control. I don't want to lose control and have high temperatures that I wasn't expecting and have the roast move quicker than I wanted or slower than I wanted. I need to make sure I have the right amount of momentum, and that's what we're doing here. So we're at 3 minutes right now, about 1.5 minutes more. Let's see, we are at 117 C. This dark line that is going up and it's curving downward now is our rate of rise. That's at 25. So 25 degrees temperature increase per minute. So a minute from now, we're going to be at 415, 420. We're going to be 25 degrees. That'll be 150. So that tells me yellow takes place around 150 to 155 on this machine. We're going to watch that, but we're going to be pretty close to the temperature and the timed event that we want here. 85% power, 50% air, and 50 RPM on the drum. All right, now our rate of rise or rate of temperature increase is starting to dwindle just a little bit. That's normal. I haven't changed any of the power settings. This is just the natural part of the roasting process. It's like going on a roller coaster where you get brought to the top and then you launch down and the roller coaster continues on its own. That's what's happening with the heat here. I'm going to lower my power down to 75, and I'm looking at the bean. That bean color looks yellow, so I'm going to mark yellow right now. Okay, so the drying phase is complete and we are on track with our roast. That is great news. We spent 4 minutes and 33 seconds in this drying phase. The coffee has turned yellow, and now we begin this browning phase, and this is where flavor development takes place. Just like I used the example of caramelizing onions, we want to do the same thing with this coffee. And I don't want to rush this either. I want to get to a first crack event of about 8 minutes. And that is going to give me some nice sweetness to this coffee as well. I'm going to bump this power down now to say 50. And I'm going to bump my fan up to 55. And I'm increasing my fan a little bit to promote convective type heat roasting the coffee. So more air moving around the beans rather than just the beans touching hot surfaces. All right, we're at 6.5 minutes, so a minute and a half. We got another 2 minutes, and we're at a rate of rise of 14. So that's 28 degrees. That is going to be plenty. We are right on track. As a matter of fact, I'm going to lower my power possibly just a little bit more here down to 40, because I want to avoid when we get closer to first crack, the coffee will have a tendency to start to give off energy from this moisture release, and I'm going to try to have a nice descending rate of rise here if that's possible. And we're going to lower this to 35. There is a little bit of that first crack flick, and we're already starting to get some cracks, and I'm going to call first crack, and now I'm lowering the power to 20. Actually, I'm going to lower it to 10. All right, so we've hit first crack, and we are in the development phase. I came to first crack quicker than I wanted. I've got 3 minutes of flavor development. That's still pretty good. I really wanted a longer period of time with that. I'm going to increase the fan now to 65, and I'm going to increase our power back up to 20. I've got some really good development, but I am past my drop temperature, and I want to get a little more development time in here. So we're going to be ending up with a higher drop temperature than I wanted. This could be going towards a medium rather than a medium light roast. And I'm looking for about a minute and 7:30. Are we ready to drop the coffee? It kind of happens quick at the end. This cooling tray is an accessory. This is something you definitely want to have to cool your coffee as quickly as possible. The coffee's had a chance to cool. The roaster is almost done cooling down. It cools down pretty quick. And we're going to talk about the roast here, but I wanted to show you that the roaster, 36 roasts on the screen, exhaust temperature is 109°C and the bean temperature is 87°C. It knows that the drawer is opened and the door is open. So this is a smart roaster that knows what's happening to itself. This lever, when I charge the roast and I move this lever, this is what tells the roaster that the roast has begun. It's really a really well thought out product. I've been really happy with it. Okay, so now let's talk about this roast. Here I've got the coffee that I just roasted, and I want to show you This is what it weighed out at. It weighs 265.4 grams. And when I start with 300 grams of coffee and I do the calculation, we end up with a weight loss of 11.53%. That is definitely on the lighter side of the roast. I think this coffee is a little dry because of its age. And so I think that this realistically is closer to about a 12% roast level. Looking at the beans, and I'm going to show you these up close, this is exactly where I wanted to be. Now that I've taken a close look at these beans, looking at the color, the texture, this is definitely a medium light roasted coffee. I'll get some close-ups of this so you can see here. Nice texture, a fairly even overall roast color, and I'm excited to try this coffee. So what happened to the roast? It did go a little faster than I had planned this roast to go. And I'm thinking, the more I'm starting to kind of piece all this together, I'm thinking that the coffee may have been just a little dry, and that may have caused things to move on a little quicker than I expected. And this is what coffee roasting is all about. We're dealing with an agricultural product, and it is affected by its age, how you store it, how the coffee was treated during transportation and before you purchased it, where it was grown, the type of coffee you're roasting, the varietal, the altitude that the coffee was grown at, the desired roast level, and you have all of these different factors that play in, variables I should say, that play in to how this coffee is going to behave when you roast it. But when you actually roast it, it's a learning process. And so the more information we have about the coffee before we begin the roasting process, the better. That's why I talked about density. That's why I talked about the age of the coffee a little bit before I roasted it. And yeah, so I think I'm really pleased with the roast, but let's take a look at this. We definitely hit the dry event exactly when we wanted. But we arrived at first crack a little sooner than I wanted. And I think part of that was due to the fact that I didn't lower my energy enough just before first crack. And you see kind of this leveling off of the rate of temperature increase or the rate of rise. And if that would have been able to continue to descend a little bit and stay on track, then I think I would have gotten an extra 15 seconds, and that would have brought me a lot closer to where I wanted, which was, I think originally I said 3.5 minutes was my target, and we got 3 minutes. So it definitely happened quicker than I planned. And then that caused my ending temperature and my ending temperature to end a little higher than I wanted. Now, we're gonna taste and see how that impacted the cup. I was targeting 196 to 198, but quite honestly, first crack happened at 195. And I think some of that is the lack of moisture in the bean. And so I think some of these temperatures might be skewed a little bit. For you newer roasters, this is kind of, next level into the hobby, trying to figure out what it was that caused some of the issues with the roast. But here we are with a coffee that looks beautiful. It's very close in color to what I was hoping to end up with. And now it comes down to the taste. It's been a week since I roasted this coffee and we're getting ready to go in for the taste. But I wanted to just mention that this is what I do here on this channel. So we roast coffee together, I share my experiences, and I roast on a variety of pieces of equipment. So the BeanGoCube X people sent me this roaster to share my experiences with you. That's what I'm doing. I've had a very positive experience. To take a coffee roaster and say it's designed for the consumer market and the beginner, and to be able to roast a profile by pushing a button, that's pretty cool. But then to be able to go fully in the manual mode and roast a custom profile, that is really cool. So this is a roaster that you can grow into, and my experiences so far, I would recommend this roaster. I'll have a link down in the description. I'm going to go ahead and put up some tasting notes from Royal Coffee, where I got the coffee from. Wow. Okay, super clean. Definitely a juicy note that just flows over the tongue. It's a citrus note. There's also a zing, kind of a fizz on the back of the throat and the back of the tongue. In the notes here, it's a ginger note, which makes perfect sense. This is, like I said, a really clean cup. It's definitely not over roasted. It's balanced. There is kind of a sweetness that I can't identify, but this is a really pleasant cup of coffee. This is probably the best roast of this San Lorenzo Bolivian that I've been able to get, and we did it here on this BeanGo Cube X. So that's really cool. I'm excited about that. In our next video, I'm going to take the BeanGo Cube X and I'm going to take this profile and modify it. So start with an auto roast, and then we're going to go into the manual mode. This is a way to transition as you learn how to roast coffee from an auto roast to starting to take over manual changes to the roasting profile while you're roasting. And we're going to do that here in the next video, and then hopefully in a future video we'll also have the BeanGo Cube X connected to Artisan. Well, I think this is a win. I'm really happy to be able to share this with you. If you like what you've seen, hit the like button. Always subscribe, then you'll be notified when new videos come out. And I appreciate you being here. So thanks for joining me today, and I hope you have a great week roasting.